The man heated an iron ball to several thousand degrees, then carefully placed it into the cannon barrel. He poured in some gunpowder and aimed the cannon at the forest behind the enemy forces. At that moment, the enemy's cannons were also trained on the city wall. The man lit the fuse, and the iron ball sped toward the enemy's ammunition depot, smashing the wooden barrels. A large amount of gunpowder spilled out and covered the iron ball. Then a violent explosion occurred, killing over half of the enemy forces. The next morning, the enemy troops returned to the base of the city wall and fired their cannons directly at it. The bombardment caused many casualties among the soldiers, and the city wall was riddled with holes. An hour later, the enemy ceased their bombardment and ordered several rows of musketeers to step forward. As the defenders on the city wall were just about to check the situation, they were shot by the enemy. Under the cover of the musketeers, the enemy forces quickly approached the city wall, preparing to launch an attack. Once the enemy set up their ladders, the defenders also took the opportunity to counterattack. However, the enemy's numbers were overwhelming, and soon some of them managed to climb up to the city tower. At that moment, the city civilians threw homemade bombs over the wall, destroying the ladders. The enemies who had climbed up to the city tower were quickly eliminated without support. The enemy forces had no choice but to retreat temporarily. Then the enemy officer ordered the bombardment to continue. One of the shells severed the chain, and the city gate fell. The officer commanded all the cavalry to charge through the gate. The man stood at the entrance as the soldiers wheeled up a large cannon. A specially made shell blocked the enemy and also destroyed the city gate. The officer was furious and had no choice but to give up again. Then the officer decided to use the princess's daughter as leverage to force the other side to surrender. The princess had no choice but to agree. With their plan successful, the enemy forces continued to advance, preparing to attack the capital. However, after 3 days of fighting, they still failed. The enemy officer was captured, and the princess returned to her country. Despite the victory, the higher-ups believed that the princess was the source of the turmoil and decided to execute her publicly. On the other side, the man's outstanding performance was recognized by everyone, and he was pushed onto the throne. But when he learned that his beloved princess was about to be executed, he immediately rushed over to stop it. To save the princess, he offered to duel the officer. After a fierce battle, the man successfully killed his opponent. Then he said that as long as they gave up the execution of the princess, he was willing to relinquish the throne. In the end, the princess was sentenced to enter a convent, and the man did not regret anything he had done for his love.